Okay, recording has been started. So once again, this call is being recorded and we will place our recording on our YouTube channel. And as I said, this is a call with Microsoft team members as well as our customers and partners. So with that, happy Friday. Thank you for joining another session of Azure Power Lunch. And today we are going to talk about how to secure APIs with Azure API Management and App Gateway. And by the way, this is I have worked through this solution, help a few customers, so I just want to kind of share it with you, um, like some of the things that we come across and we have to, as we were developing the solution, how we, resolve those issues. So some of the gotchas and some of the things that you may find interesting. So as I said, this is not something kind of, you know, new. This has been out there for quite some time, but it's always good to discuss some of these items as we go over this in more detail. So what we're going to do is what we usually do, we do an overview of services, um, what is the problem statement, and what we are trying to address here, the reference architecture, and hopefully a demo. In this case, demo will be just going over the portal, showing some of the bits and pieces of the things. So first of all, quick level set. Azure API Management. Azure API Management is Microsoft solution to expose your API to an internal or external customer. Okay, three distinct pieces. You have the API plane, which is basically what you do here is you have APIs that are hosted inside your organization. You use this plane to expose those APIs to the outside world. So that's where you kind of apply policies and build like add them to products and things like that. So this is kind of a management plane of the API. Second is the portal where external or your internal customers come in and subscribe to these APIs. Okay. And the third one is gateway, which is the magic happens. That's where this is the runtime piece there or data plane where you are accessing those external customers are accessing or internal customers are accessing those APIs and there you have applied policies and things like that on those API to secure them. Okay, and of course these APIs can be hosted in AKS or API management, app service environment, or your own VMs and things like that. So let's quickly move on. Um, this is how you kind of assign access. You have users or groups of users, and then you have um, products which are nothing but a collection of APIs, and that's how you provide access to users. They create a subscription of those APIs. And just keep in mind, in today's discussion, our goal is not to go deep into API management or app gateway. We are going to talk about the solution that how you secure this end to end using API management, provide like secure access to your APIs to internal as well as external customers using API management and App Gateway. Okay, so with that, and this is kind of a general summarization of everything that we discussed. Developer portal, and by the way, we are focusing on the new developer portal, not the legacy developer portal that is customizable. Okay, the new developer portal is customizable. Then you have the management plane. We already talked about it. That's where you kind of build these collection of APIs. And by the way, you can monetize or don't want to monetize. I mean, this is a different scenario. Doesn't matter. Uh, Still management plane, kind of you will be using the management plane. And finally, the gateway where you do authenticate the request and you apply policies to it. Okay, now comes the app gateway. So with the app gateway, this is put simply layer 7 load balancer. It's a managed service. It's a layer 7 load balancer in the cloud, provide SSL offload. basically SSL termination or end-to-end SSL. In our scenario, we will use end-to-end SSL. Okay, and uh, it kind of used to protect your web application. In this scenario, it is protecting our API. So basically, HTTP, HTTPS scenarios. That's what you use application gateway. Web application firewall. So this is we are going to be using App Gateway v2 with web application firewall. And firewall is here to protect our, I mean, you can be web apps, in this case, our API. So this is kind of key components of our solution. Quick level set. If you want to know more detail, please look at Azure site and find more details about it. But I just want to give you a quick glimpse of these components and how we are going to build this solution. So let's start with the problem statement. What we are trying to address here. The goal is to secure our infrastructure. You have the APIs that you're hosting, and you're using API management to protect, to apply policies, and do all those interesting things. And you want to provide access to the end user. They can be coming from outside of your organization over the internet, or they may be coming from inside your organization. So goal is how you can provide protection against, like, DDoS attacks and things like that. I mean, how you can make this environment secure. So that's what we are trying to address with this particular solution. And so moving forward, the first thing you want to do is we are going to be using custom domains for our API management. We are going to deploying it inside the VNet. It's going to be an internal VNet instance, and we're going to be using custom domains for three of its endpoints. Proxy, which is basically the gateway endpoint. The second one is the portal. This is a new portal endpoint. And the third one is the management. So these are the three endpoints. There's an SCM endpoint as well. Let's table this discussion. It's very similar to that, so I'm not going to talk about it. You can create a you can create a certificate for that. But these are the three certificates that you need for this solution to work. Just keep in mind, you can use self-signed certificate as long as it's a non-production scenario. Okay, for production scenario, contact your IT department or customer's IT department to get the appropriate certs. Okay, the steps are slightly different, but the main scenarios still remain the same. We will need that those certificates for our custom domains. The second part is the virtual network. We will be needing at least three subnets. One for app gateway, API management, of course, one for app gateway, um, one for a jump server, and I highly recommend have a jump server, a Windows server deployed there so you can test. Since it's going to be an internal instance of API management, you want to test it out right there and then to make sure everything is working and all that. So that fourth is, and this is one thing that's kind of optional, is the PLS service to provide the ability to create private endpoints on top of API management. As you know, API management does not provide the ability to create private endpoint. It's a VNet injected service. It's drop inside a VNet, but at the same time, you cannot create private endpoints on top of it. So we are gonna create a small piece of infrastructure to do that, and we will talk about it in the later slide. And of course, create the keys and put them in Azure Key Vault, because all access to the keys will be through Azure Key Vaults. Okay. Um, Finally, Azure App Gateway allows you to attach a user managed identity with it. So far, the UI support is not there, but you can attach it. And that's how we're gonna we're going to use that user managed identity to access certificates or secrets from Key Vault. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? Oh, by the way, there is, I have pasted a link, and um, there is a script, a link to a script as well, which you can use as a reference if you are using self signed certificate. Makes it easier. And by the way, the link that I have, it talks about creating your own cert authority, kind of a for self-signed certificate just for testing. Okay, so just want to mention that. Second thing is creating the API management instance. So this is you create an internal VNet instance. In that case, you have a private endpoint associated with your API management instance, and it is only accessible by that private endpoint or private, I shouldn't say private endpoint, I should say private IP address. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to use create custom domains, use the certs that we created in the last step for these custom domains. Okay. So that's where you're going to be creating those certs and using those certs to create those custom domains. And then you will need private DNS zones. So for example, if you have a jump server in that VNet and you want to access um, app, API management, you will have to use these private DNS zones. There are two links that talk about how to set it up. Please take a look at it, and we will look at. I mean, so it's very well detailed, specified out, so uh, explained. So take a look at that, and this is the list of all the NSGs that you have to create. You don't have to create all of them. It's an exhaustive list. Just go through it and see what services your API management is connecting to, and then create those NSG rules for the subnet where your API management is hosted. It's important because you don't want unbound access to the internet. Okay. Third is create the application gateway. So this is okay. In that, when I was doing that, I am using a PowerShell script to do that. Um, and the reason is the UI support for user managed identity is not there yet, at least when you're creating it. So it's a good idea to use a PowerShell script, and I will show it to you in a second what that PowerShell script is. It's a kind of just use it as a reference, and what it needs is it needs your resource group, your API management, IP address and things like that, and certificates and all, and it will then create your API management. Sorry, your application gateway. It will create your application gateway using API management as its backend. Okay, it will set up all the rules. It takes 15, 20, 30 minutes to do that, but it will create that. Okay, finally, let's talk about the private link service piece. Why do you need that? In sometime in larger organization, if you want to access API management that is internal from your application may not be in the same VNet. It may be in a different VNet, and it may not be possible to do VNet peering. One way is to do VNet peering, and then you can access it. Very simple. But in some cases, it is not possible because those VNet may have overlapping address space, or they may belong to an application which is totally different sub-organization in a larger organization. And they may not want to do VNet peering because in that case, there's a lot of exposure and they don't want to do it for privacy or security reasons. In that case, you want to create a private endpoint to the API management instance. So how do you do that? Because it is not inherently supported. So the way to do it is you put a couple of VMs, either a VM scale set or just VMs, put them behind a standard load balancer, and on those VMs enable IP forwarding. I have provided the link and some kind of a simple script line which send those requests. I mean, in this case, it's IP forwarding to HTTPS, and you can forward it to different ports as well. Since we are doing it for um, API management, we just scope it up to 443. So once you do that, at the moment, it will start forwarding those requests to the private IP address of the API management. Then you can build a private link service on top of that internal standard load balancer. And once that service is there, you can create private IPs on top of it. Pro is now you can create private IPs. Con is you need this extra infrastructure. So just keep in mind if you or your organization that you're working with or your customer's organization need that, this is an optional solution to do that. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so this is the kind of everything put together. As you can see, you have API management service sitting internal inside a VNet. You have the application gateway, which is talking to that API management service using it as a backend. Then you have the uh, private endpoints for services like you have APIs running an app service, functions, logic apps dropped inside the VNet that API management is accessing. And then you have external on-premise machine, or you have customers outside external SaaS services or external customer who are calling either directly, as you can see from the scenario for on-premise machine, or they're calling through the application gateway, your API management service. So that's how this end-to-end scenario is working. And then you have this scenario of a non-peered VNet at the bottom that is accessing that service that is, through the private endpoint. So this is a consumer app that is calling API management through this private endpoint. Okay, so that's kind of a quick overview. So let's now look at some of the things that we have already talked about. So let's go in here. Okay, so here we are. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so let's close this. So first of all, let me show you the script that I was talking about to create the keys. So this is the script to create the keys. As you can see, I'm using OpenSSL and I'm using nzazuredemo.com in this example. You can use your own and create the keys for portal, and by the way, it doesn't have to be API. You can name it gateway or foo, doesn't matter. But make sure that you follow this naming convention and create all those keys. So that's that. Second thing I talked to you about is the PowerShell script. So this is the PowerShell script. As you can see, it is setting up the resource ID, region, name of the keyword, name of the API gateway that you want to give, and all the host name that you have. And once you do that, it will create the application gateway. And here it is creating the application gateway. I'm creating a single instance. And basically, this is how it's creating the application gateway. I'm creating a single backend pool with the IP address of the API management service. On the other hand, I'm creating 3 rules, one for each of the custom domain, like for gateway, for or proxy, one for portal, and one for management. Okay, so with all of these things are there, everything is over 443. I'm using the same certs that we use for custom domain names. That's what I'm doing. This is, once again, going back, this is how, so let's quickly go to the one by one different pieces of the architecture. Let me click here. This is my API management. As you can see, I just want to show you something here. First of all, overview. As you can see, this is the private IP address. Second thing is are the identity. Let me see, managed identity. I have enabled the managed identity of this thing, so it is enabled. Third is custom domain names. So let's go to the custom domain names. So I have 3 custom domains that I have created, and as you can see, I have assigned the certificates, and it's very simple. Basically, you can go in here, select your keyword, assign the cert, and that's all there is to it. Okay, and you should be able to do that. I have assigned for developer portal, management, and gateway. This will stay there. I'm not changing it, but this is the default one, as you can see. This is the Azure API.net. Okay, so that's the API management. So let's take a look at the app gateway. This is the app gateway. As you can see, there is a single backend pool with 3 rules. This is the IP address. If you remember, this is the IP address of the API management. And let's take a look at one rule. So this is the rule, assigning it to this listener. This is the backend API. So let's take a look at the listeners. There is one listener, HTTPS 443. I'm using, this is the certificate, the GW cert that I'm using, and this is the host name that is sending request to. Okay, so that's all it is done in that PowerShell script that I reference, and you can take a look at it and you modify it or use it whatever or use it as a reference. So that's how this is kind of sending this request. And let's go back here. This is the HTTP setting. So let's look at the the gateway HTTP. It's HTTPS 443. And this is the whitelist serve. Okay, so if you are using self-signed certificates, you will have to provide a kind of a, the what they call it. Let me show you here. They call it a trusted root cert. It is only needed if you are not using certificates which are by a CA, provided by a CA. So basically you are using self-signed certificates. So that's why I have to use it. So that's what I'm using it. And that's what it's kind of providing kind of the root CA authority or custom CA authority. And of course, I'm, new host name and probe and all that. So this is all set through the script. Okay, any questions? Okay, by the way, you will need the DNS names, use private DNS zones. And in the case of your public IP address, I am using, as you can see here, I am using etc host file. So if you're using on Mac, I mean, you can use whatever appropriate mechanism. But if you are using on Windows, I'm just using the host file. And what is this? This is the IP address of the app gateway. So this is the public IP address for the app gateway. Here it is. So that's what I'm using. So let's start taking a look at this thing one step at a time. So first of all, we're going to try to access it from the public IP address. So I have, let's go to the API management, and there is an API that I have exposed. It's a to-do API. It is based on an API that I have hosted in Azure App Service, and it has different operation, get all, get item, save item. I'm just gonna call one of that. And since I have set up this this host file, it should work. So here is the uh, address of the API. As you can see, I'm using custom domain name, and to access, and it's a GET API. I'm using an API key. So let's call it. As you can see, I get the result back. So this time it's going over the application gateway, through the application gateway, and then getting into the API management. And let's see if the portal is working as well. So I'm just going to type in HTTPS portal. Okay, let me, I'm good at typing, so I'm just going to copy this address. Here we go. And you will get this error because we are using self-signed certificates. Second.
So you'll have to have the cert on your local store.
Yeah, I mean, I added it. I'm not sure why it was working a minute ago. Okay, let me just close it and try it again. Hold on a second. New private window. Give me 1 second. I think I may have changed something. Okay, so here we go. Portal. Okay, as you can see, the portal is showing up. Okay, so I'm not sure what was going on there, but this is the portal. So I can go sign in, sign up, all that. So this is portal now showing up over the app gateway and all the way back to the API management. Okay, now I am also, as you have seen, I have created a private link service. So let's take a look at that. So let's go to the resource group, and you will see here a private link service. This is the service that I have created using this load balancer. So as I said, this is the architecture where we have a load balancer sitting in front of a set of VMs, which are just doing port forwarding. And we are using this PLS to create private endpoints. So I have created a private endpoint and dropped it into a different VNet. Okay, so there is a VM. This is the VM. This is running in a different VNet. Okay, it is in South Central, so it's an entirely different region. Okay, in a separate subnet, different VNet. I dropped a private endpoint there. I have set up the DNS zone and everything. Now I go in there and I'm once again, same thing. I have set the private DNS zone and I'm going to call this, and look, it's working. And by the way, just to make sure it's going through the proxy, I'm going to call it a few times. And look, the policy, we have set a starter policy on it. So no more than 5 requests in 1 minute. And it's taking into effect saying, hey, you need to wait for a minute. Okay. Once again, let's open the portal. So let's do this. Okay, here is the portal. So now portal is showing up as well over private endpoint. So this is, you are now accessing within this organization or a different department in a different VNet over a private endpoint. So both of these scenarios. Any questions, folks? I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully that kind of answers some of your questions and explain the solution more kind of in more detail. So as usual, I will upload the presentation into our, the YouTube channel. So thank you for joining. If then nobody has any questions, see you folks next week in another session of Azure Power Lunch. Have a wonderful weekend, folks. Stay safe.